Hey guys, my name is Hab and this is the FV4202, a Tier 10 British medium tank. We've had very few Tier 10 coverages on the channel before, and I don't think many of them hold up that well anymore outside of the STB1 video. The 4202 has received many rebalances in its history, and after a year or something since the large rebalance, and with another one coming very soon, it's had some time to settle in at the tier. Let me make one thing clear, however, and that is that this is my favorite tier 10 medium. However, it isn't a particularly easy tank to get into, and let me tell you why. This might take a while. The gun itself is the biggest appeal of the FV. It's always been good, but nowadays I think it's more important to actually say why it's so good, especially considering the massive influx of players at the tier that don't have much experience with these tanks. The first thing I have to say is that if you're running the Hesh gun, and you should, calibrated shells are an absolute must. With calibrated shells installed, you're running nearly 270mm of AP penetration, which is not a whole ton, but it's still solid AP, and a lot of those tanks have weak points susceptible to penetrations with this much power behind that shell. You should mostly think of Hesh as a high penetration HE shell, at least in the scope of Blitz. With calibrated shells, you're looking at around 232mm of pen, which is enough to cleave through most tier 9 tanks frontally. It might not sound like anything impressive, but you have to consider the fact that this Hesh has 440 alpha. This propels your damage output far higher than most other mediums at this range, and none of them can actually compete with you regarding HE penetration, and the reload time matters a little less thanks to that. Your accuracy is overall also great, you also have 10 degrees of gun depression on the top of this, and stirring this little soup together means that you have a very versatile chassis that can pounce on most things it sees, at the very least from the sides. You should memorize most armor profiles at this tier and the spots with where you could go through using a Hesh shell. That alongside map awareness is what makes the 4202 a high skill but high reward tank. The armor itself is not outstanding, but that was never the point of the FV either. The turret has been considerably up-armored during the last big rebalance, but it's still not that reliable as there is a prominent cupola on the turret, and the turret shape itself is a little weird to work with. It's not gonna hold you, but it will bounce the occasional shot here and there. The frontal hull is actually very well angled and has nearly 300mm of effective armor, but it's a low-to-the-ground tank, and there's a strip of armor near the top that is 180mm. That upper plate is gonna get reduced by a considerable amount very often, but you can bait others to shoot at it every now and then, which does help a bit towards survivability. The mobility is great, and so let's keep it simple here, and I've been wasting your time for several minutes already. The 4202 goes 60, and it turns fast. Terrain resistance is decent, and traverse numbers are also good. This is just a tank that won't be troubled with most terrain challenges you'll throw at it, and compared to other mediums at the tier, this is one of the more mobile ones. So let's go through some pros and cons. The pros are the excellent gun, great mobility, trollish armor, Hesh, and great gun depression. And the cons are the armor being unreliable and a relatively high skill ladder. There is not really a need to say whether or not it's worth the grind, as Tech 3 Tier 10s should really stay in your garage anyway, but whether or not it's worth playing a lot depends entirely on your map knowledge and armor knowledge. Someone more experienced with the game, and Tier 10 especially, will use the 4202 to wreak plenty of havoc and have a boatload of fun, but you also have to cope with the fact that you will be bleeding credits and some games will just not work out. In the current more heavy-oriented meta of the game, for example, the 4202 has suffered quite a bit, but I find that I'm still able to get some consistent numbers in. And with all of that said, time for a bit of replaying. Alright, yeah, this is just gonna be a quicker bit of a battle. Oasis Palms, Tier 10, Encounter, of course, because I don't play Supremacy, but I think this is a pretty nice display of what the 4202 can actually do, although the start will look a little bit dicey. You can see that the WZ-120 there does not seem to have the top gun, which is a little bit of a shame, but there's not much you can do about it. And I'm pretty sure he helps me a tiny bit more, so... Anyway, let's roll out a little bit. I have noticed some of the changes that might be coming to the 4202, mainly the fact that on the Hesh gun the aim time will be a little bit shorter in exchange for a slightly longer reload time, which, in case you're asking, is not gonna make absolutely any difference to me whatsoever. That shorter aim time might help with snapshots, but the 0.3 seconds, as long as you're firing Hesh, don't really matter either. Anyway, as you can see, the grill isn't running a spool liner, so he got whooped pretty bad, while our WZ is also not looking too hot. The TVP has been doing some very questionable moves as of late, and here comes the T-54. Hey buddy, how's it going? He missed, and I immediately unloaded into him, so... You know, this is kind of a thing that you should watch out for when you're fighting against the 4202. Something like a T-54 is absolutely not safe. It's gonna be absolutely dead. Another thing that I would also highly suggest is to just, like, not spam Hesh all the time. Sometimes you may want to run the cheap Hesh, sometimes you may want to run AP. It happens. Here comes the slight problem. My ammo is damaged, and my track is hit. The T-95 thankfully already fired, and he got tracked, meaning I had a pretty steady shot at him, so... I immediately took that. Unfortunately, you can see that I have an incredibly bad reload time now, which does not really stop me. He fired on that extremely over-angled plate, granted only with the 120mm, so it wouldn't have mattered much, but still, that means I've blocked another shot off. And now, 11.4 seconds, but hey, I still have about 440 alpha, so it's not that bad. Now it's time to actually chase the TVP a little bit, because he's still quite a bit of a threat, especially to me once he flushes that mag, which is not great. And because he rammed the WZ-120, that meant that he had enough HP for me to one-shot him. So you can already see some of these numbers are going in a little bit further. If he did not ram that WZ-120, chances are I would not have been able to kill him, and he could have killed me, which would have meant that this battle would be prematurely over. I was trying to check if there was anybody even around here for a couple of seconds until I noticed the 4005 was already there, so there was not really a reason for me to stay around, but I am coming in just to rack up a little bit more damage. So yeah, I guess you can see why the 4202 is my favorite tier 10 medium, possibly my favorite tier 10, just because of all of that Hesh. Love me some Hesh, you know? Hesh is cool. Unfortunately, I did have to tank that hit a little bit, which is unfortunate, but it's not much I can do. 4 kills and 5.3k damage is already quite good, but what about if we could, you know, amp it up to 5 kills? You know, that would be kind of nice, especially since the waffle with this shot. Yeah, let's take 5 kills. 5 kills, 5.4k damage, you know, that's how it's done. That's how the 4202 is just fun to play, you know? If you're facing a lot of tier 9s, you can easily turn into a bullying monster, but if you're facing a lot of tier 10 heavies, let's just say you're gonna have a lot of problems. So, you know, that's something that you should look out for anyways. You know the classics. My name is Hab. If you somehow like this, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, whatever. I'll catch you all next time. Maybe on something a little bit lower in tiers again. We shall see.